Actually, I'm going to introduce our featured speaker, Megan Hogard. And I met Megan when I was doing some consulting work 5 years ago. I think they were launching a strategic plan 5 years ago, and she was a network chief. And everyone in that district at that time was really just focused on post-secondary success. And Megan was one of the network chiefs who was really pushing the envelope and saying, we got to do more, we can do more, here are the big and the bold. And so I'm excited that now Megan is the chief of college and career success. So she's leading the entire strategy for the district. And CPS has now done a new 5-year plan that's just been launched in the last couple of months, and have some really great goals around college and career that work together to get to every student. And so I'm going to turn it over to Megan. We'll let her present, and then we'll have a Q&A.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm gonna do my start the screen sharing, and I would add that I got to, in addition to building and definitely coming after the legacy that you all set, I also did my principal training at the school where Dr. Joyce Brown served, and I would say that I was trained up very well, raised up well in these practices, not only as a high school teacher, and I always say I was a high school teacher that wanted to be a counselor because I always got involved in the post-secondary work. But then at Kenwood Academy High School, I really learned what it meant to have a school that was focused on post-secondary success for all students, and that stayed with me in my role as a high school administrator, and then as a deputy chief, which is our regional superintendent deputy, for 4 years, and then as a chief for 6 years. So I just give that context in that I really came into this work as a practitioner in this space, and I really want to always keep that lens when we're talking about the policy work. As Kelly said, oh gosh, now I can't, I'm trying to, sorry, there we go. We as a district have been really focused on the work of post-secondary success, and I want to really start with how we think about the instructional core. And I work with our teams to really center and always center our work in what that student experience is. How are we always tending to the students at the center, and then how are we always thinking about the schools as the unit of change? Who we are as a district, when we talk about change here, and when we talk about this work, we are a large district. We have a lot of schools, and we know that over time we have seen population changes, not just racial population changes, but also different movement in parts of the city. And that has really impacted how we think about post-secondary planning as well. Our number of schools, to bring things to scale, we do serve our charter schools and our contract schools within our overall CPS population. So when we're talking about this, I just want to mention that we're talking about the entire body of schools, and our post-secondary advising framework is grades 6 through 12. So think about that scope of 477 elementary schools, grades 6 through 8, and then thinking about how we're serving the high schools. And a little bit more about my department. So the name is a little deceiving because we actually have 7 departments. Kelly, is your screen flashing too? Is that my screen?
Good to me.
No? Okay, just making sure. So we've been talking about this as a team, as everything that gets students to school, keeps them engaged, and prepares them for their post-secondary success. So really thinking about our office, and that's a lot of acronyms, but it's all of the community schools, student engagement, social emotional learning work, sports, JROTC, and then all of the post-secondary counseling and advising and early college and career. And the context of how we got to this place. So we did just end, we came to the end, as Kelly said, the last strategic plan ago, which was with I had the privilege of working with Dr. Jackson, and I know Dr. McDade is one of the upcoming speakers. But we've been a district who's focused on post-secondary success, really focused on college success for a long time. We are a city that thinks about post-secondary success. We've got great university partners. And where that's gotten us in our focus overall has gotten us to look at this great four-year graduation rate. We are at the highest we've ever been in many of these metrics. So the number of early college credits, thinking about how many students are getting close to that associate's degree or at least a semester of early college credit. And then thinking about our college enrollment and our persistence. So recognizing that we have done a lot of work to get to this place. And it was in this space that we really recognize it's not enough. So the many years of developing policy and then the practices and being really clear around Learn, Plan, Succeed, which is our concrete post-secondary plan, our advising frameworks, all of the intentional supports around alumni, around freshmen on track, has still shown that we have a serious opportunity gap when we're looking across student groups. And the persistence, while it's increasing, is not where it's not good enough for us. We really want to see all of our students that we get to a place of post-secondary enrollment or career even focus, we want to see them persist and be successful in that chosen pathway, which is how we've thought over the years and I wanted to show you our last set of strategic plan goals from the last 5-year vision so you could see conceptually it looks very different. So these goals were how we got to drive towards the outcomes we have. So we were thinking about on track, which maps really well. If you don't have an on track metric, that is down to one student. Are they on track to be successful or not? And when Kelly, when you mentioned the NPSI goal of every student, that really resonates. The way we think about high school graduation is at the student level. When we think about the college readiness benchmarks and enrollment, it is again at the student level. We have set up structures that we're not looking at averages. We are looking at individual students within each school and then at what rate the individual schools are. And when you transition from that to this is how we're now thinking around our strategy. It is a very different metric, just even visually, right? We went from a dashboard of are you hitting those metrics to us saying, does every single student experience a joyful, rigorous, equitable daily learning experience? And why that was important to us, for one, we went to level set of where is our theory of action around the gaps in our goal. We as a district went on a 3-year cycle with at Harvard with PELP and really dug into our problem of practice around which students are not getting this experience and which students are not accessing our goals, even with all the infrastructure and all the policy. And what we came to is there was not equitable experience across the district. And the zip code you lived in really determined what type of experience you were getting, whether you were being funneled into narrow opportunities or you were being really opened up into all of the advanced opportunities. And this is what that graphic looks like. So it's a little crazy. And every time I say continuous improvement and data transparency framework, people kind of roll their eyes. But what it really means in practice is for us as a district to put a stake in the ground with here are the practices we expect to see at the school level. And then what are the things at central office that we are doing? What are the resources? What are our practices that are supporting those best practices at the school level? So as a post-secondary success office, that had us shift our thinking around not so much the student outcome of college enrollment or career completion. It really had us think to how are we equitably ensuring all students are ready for that next step and what is within our locus of control. I'm not a Department of Teaching and Learning. I don't own the classroom experiences in lead teacher PD. What I really do manage is access to advanced opportunities prior to graduation. So that led us to focus on to get to the place we are with our 70% goal. And so that fell in our district thinking. Connectedness and well-being really lives in my office, as well as post-secondary success. And you can see listed under post-secondary success, we really focused in on advanced coursework and work-based learning opportunities. But what you can't see in this graphic is that within our work with out of school time, we're funding the summer readiness, 8th grade to 9th grade transition work for students. So we're moving away from freshman to high school on track language, which we know then connects to those overall goals. We also are funding the behavioral health team work and the work around making sure all students are getting the support they need so that they can have the attendance and they can have the GPA that keeps them eligible for those advanced coursework opportunities. So really trying to think holistically about the opportunities, but then where are the places that the barriers are within our locus of control to address. And that brings us to just the overall target strategies within this plan. And you can see even at a glance that there's overlap in these strategies. So post-secondary success clearly overlaps with multilingual pathways, clearly with Black student success, with how are we creating rightful presence for our students with disabilities. And the universal 5-year goals, again, that's 70% of graduates will have earned a semester of college credit or advanced career credential. Where for us, that's about 70% of 22,000 or so seniors. So that really pushed us back into how are we looking at every student in every school with the preparation and with those early exposure activities. And when we rolled this out, some of our teams and our school-based teams felt some kind of way. Like, you're moving away from Learn, Plan, Succeed, we're not going to focus on these, on the intentional supports that we've been doing. And so we had to do a lot of messaging around we're not moving away from that. We know we need to keep those strategies going. We need to keep those strong practices, but we've identified like here's where we see the opportunity gap and here's where we need to shore up our practices and fill the gap with our practices. And where we leaned in on our early college data, we also leaned in on AP and IB and CTE and used this early college model to say this graph, this pie chart, pretty much looks like our demographic breakdown as a district. So if we can have this level of success in one of our advanced pathways, we really have no excuse to have the opportunity gaps in our other advanced pathways. And it's a call to action for us to level set across all of these practices. I know I mentioned our 6th to 12th grade practices. So when you see within those 5-year goals, moving to a semester's worth of advanced credit or career credential, we had to build the infrastructure for that. We had to make that data visible. It was not visible in any of our data systems. A lot of the certifications lived outside of our systems. The early college data lived outside of our student information systems. And we had a lot of data that was reported after graduation, which is kind of like the autopsy versus a checkup. We just rolled out the full advising curriculum, grades 6 through 12. We did have the high school advising, but we made it whole, and we moved to a system from Naviance to School Links so that we could then record all of the student experiences in one place. And then really saying, we're gonna also name, we need a middle school strategy. We're a district of K to 8 schools, pre-K to 8 and 9 to 12. So we didn't have an identified transition to high school within middle schools. And we noticed that was definitely a gap in our practice. So the kind of, managing up to our higher ed partners as well as managing down to make sure the elementary to high school transition was there. And again, just really calling out our expanded access. We are talking about equitable experiences in all of the pathways. CTE has historically been the experiences are not consistent, shall I say. So one student could earn a basic food handling OSHA certificate, and another student is earning a advanced certificate in HVAC, and we were counting those things the same. We were counting an IB diploma the same as a basic OSHA cert. And I think everyone on this call knows those are vastly different earning potentials if you're graduating with those experiences. So while we're shoring up the advising, we're also shoring up the course sequence, we're looking at the certifications, and we're so fortunate to work with a really strong city college partner with the Chicago Roadmap, where we have access to all the early college courses. But as we dug in more and more, we realized that more and more students could also have access to their certification, which is at the city college level, which is then pushing us to think about why the work that we're doing within our schools around career pathways, how can we raise it to the level of the early college access that all of our students could have? And this is how we're thinking about it as an office. So I wanted to share, and these are internal work slides. So there's 2 primary departments that are engaged in our post-secondary success work within my office: the Office of School Counseling and Post-Secondary Advising, and then early college and career education. And within OSCPA, they measure and support our traditional post-secondary metrics, as well as look all the student supports for what we call the next pathways, which is spelled out here. It's the non-traditional, historically non-traditional pathways. They also support freshman connection, and then really think about how do we support students into those career, the to be successful and persistent. And the piece I'll call out about the work that's really taken off for us in OSCPA, besides the concrete post-secondary plan and learn, plan, succeed, which really nearly 100% of students, like 99 point, you complete these concrete post-secondary plans. Our growth in that area is these next pathways, and really helping folks understand that you have to be prepared for college, even if you want to go into a trade pathway. These are not different bars. They're very competitive pathways and are very viable, and we've gotten great traction there. And then on the early college and career side, again, married to OSCPA, they are thinking about what are those experiences that we want students to have in the career exposure and the work-based learning continuum. So we've really ramped up early college. We're really ramping up those work-based learning experiences. We hire over 1,400 students into our district every summer and place them in internships, as well as thinking about what does that exposure experience from in elementary all the way through graduation around careers. And this has been a huge lift. And an area where I'm excited to learn from other districts around their non-college pathway advising. And again, really just wrapping up that, we are thinking as a district, we're thinking about what is our responsibility? How do we think about preparation within the non-teaching and learning side? Beyond just we're planning for senior year or we're giving you college or career exposure, we're really thinking about the full continuum of experiences, and how can we really lift that bar on the experiences so they are more equitable, not just equitable across the city or across different student groups, but really saying that what you are getting if you're in a CTE class, or if you're getting an IB class, or you're going to a city college, is at the same level of expectation and the same level of support. And that is it for my slides.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. I know that was, I appreciated all the strategies embedded with what led to your current goal. So we are going to open it up for questions. You all can feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll read them over to Megan, or if you want to just come off mute, you can do that as well. I am going to throw you one question first, Megan, that I know I've heard from others as we were prepping for this. I know there's a lot of questions and districts on the call around the career credential and what counts. Like you mentioned, like OSHA not being as strong as obviously, an IB diploma. But how are you all thinking about either how have you tackled it, or how are you thinking about tackling that piece, that equivalent to a semester of college? How are you going to tease that out?
Oh, for sure. This is a great question. I think we think about this like every minute of every day right now. And I want to say I had some great learnings from some districts looking at Ohio and Indiana, and what their practices are. So we, the state of Illinois, has moved to college and career pathway endorsement, which is CTE aligned, but you don't have to be in CTE to earn this. And it's helping us shift our thinking around how do we level set those experiences, because you need to have a 60-hour internship. You need to have done two team-based challenges, which are much more rigorous than just a site visit. It's more of an experience, and you have to have taken two advanced courses. So we are really using that kind of as an anchor endorsement around our career pathway work. Also, that helps us loop in the model pathways, which are city college certification, as well as students who say, you know what, I might be taking a kind of a, I don't want to take a full CTE sequence because I'm really on, I want to take these AP courses, or I need time in my schedule to be able to do some different things. You can still earn the CCPE, the College and Career Pathway Endorsement, even if you're mixing the pathways together. And we really want student agency. We want, informed and supported, but we want students to be able to make a decision, so we're not tracking students, because anytime we're the only ones making the decision, that's where we end up having uneven practices.
All right, question from the chat. It says, it sounds like your school system actually hires student interns over the summer.
Yep.
Are these interns paid, and what are they doing?
They are paid our minimum wage, which is high in Chicago. Fortunate for the students, and we work with industry partners to place them in jobs outside of the district. So there is a small amount of placements within the district, like within our communications team or within specific departments where they're learning the work, or IT. But overall, they're everything from our hospital systems to City Hall to Microsoft, and they go through the same hiring process basically you would go through as a teacher. So if you can imagine walking 1,400 high schoolers through onboarding, that's our counselors, do a lot of great training there.
And then how do you engage families along with their students?
That is a place will always strive to do more. So we do have family access in all of our systems, and we do intentional reports that get mailed to every family as well, which you can imagine we get a lot returned, and our student information system has parent access, and we do a ton of family nights, lots of different virtual options, lots of different in-person options. But that is a place we will never have enough. And so always looking for ideas there.
Yolanda, you want to come off mute?
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Megan. My question is around the engagement of like the instructional team in your district, what we call the academic team or the instructional team. What did that collaboration, or what does that collaboration look like in terms of more than just implementing, high quality instructional materials, but alignment to these post-secondary metrics and goals?
Yes. So we, because we're such a large district within our organization, we have a teaching and learning team that has then a bunch of content teams, and we partner. So we have a structure around post-secondary success as part of our strategic plan, where we meet regularly and look at the places that we intersect. So we have content teams. Of course, we have CTE and early college. They look at the course sequence of and the actual curriculum that we're using for transitional math and transitional English with the math and English teams, and then with our city college professors. There's places where it's messy, like computer science for us is messy. That is on the teaching and learning side. All the IT pathways are on our side. And STEM, we work with we have 13 early college STEM high schools. We have lots of intersection in those spaces. So I would say there's places we work well, and there's places where we're still struggling. Where we're working really well right now is on policy alignment. So looking at where's the graduation policy and GPA and promotion, that's on all of our teams. So we have to really dig into that. And then the other piece I would say around, we have Skyline is our curriculum platform. So Success Bound is on Skyline. And we look at these instructional practices, we expect them to be the same across really both of our teams. So it's not perfect. It's probably the never ending struggle, but definitely calling it out.
A question from the chat. It says, so I'm interested in finding out more about the Success Bound grades 6 through 12 curriculum. As we know, Success Bound is a middle school curriculum. Is it something that has been developed by CPS, or are you working with the vendor to extend the curriculum?
We work directly with Success Bound. So when it first started, we were calling it Success Bound in middle school, and C4, College and Career Council. I can't even remember. See, that's how well we've transitioned. I don't remember what that acronym was, but we now call the whole continuum Success Bound, but it did start with the middle school strategy. And they actually are helping push us to be more intentional around middle school with that. But they they came with the middle school strategy or with the middle school curriculum and wrote the high school elements based on some of our existing advising curriculum and then aligned it all.
Miss Melender from San Antonio.
Thank you. My question is really, sorry, my question is really around the collaboration is what I think it is between you guys and the state with the college and career pathway endorsements. We have endorsements here in the state of Texas, which are a little bit different, but I liked how you said the way this endorsement works, the student doesn't have to be in CTE, but they can still capitalize on those things. So one, I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit more about that. And then two, I wondered if you guys kind of lobbied your legislature to get that, did you work, in connection with them? How did you make that happen so harmoniously?
It's an interesting, again, we have one type of diploma, and that and our district, we have state graduation requirements, and our district graduation requirements are actually above and beyond the state. So it put us in a position of kind of thinking about how do we really leverage. The state came out with the college and career pathway endorsement, and we had to then think about, does this work for us? How do we leverage it? And then how do we kind of advocate to get it to make more sense for us? So I will say, I will name first Ed Systems at Northern Illinois is a really important partner in this work, and they are helping to lobby for the places where we need it to be a little bit different. I don't, we're the biggest district in the state by a lot, so our practices are kind of need to be different in some places, but I appreciated it didn't lower the bar for the diploma, so it's not a different type of diploma. And I do think that it's important. We have to get approved to offer each of the endorsements. So it took us a little while to translate what our sequences are to what the state required. So I think that piece between like you're working with your state, and I know every state is different, every district is different, is still a really important call out though, because we want to, in this case, it was very useful for us to embrace the whole endorsement so that we could change some of our internal practices. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think for the most part, you answered a lot of that. I do have a follow-up question after you said a few things. Now I'm wondering, when was it more like you guys were designing what you needed and had your partners help lobby those things, or did you first see what the state had to offer?
So we kind of have, that, like, your sandbox. Like, we know there's other districts in the state, like District 214 is like blowing everybody out of the water with their career pathway work and their work-based learning. And so we were like, how are they doing this? Of course, they're, a handful of schools. So, you can get in your car and drive around and make sure everybody's doing it. It's a different experience, but we really wanted to see how are they doing it. And we know we have our Chicago roadmap, our Learn, Plan, Succeed, like we have better infrastructure in other areas. So it was really looking at their practices that helped us decide like we want to go full force into the college and career pathway endorsement. And then Ed Systems as a university partner, they also wrote some of the state legislation around the transitional programming we have, which transitional math and English go, if you pass those courses with a C or higher while you're in high school, you don't have to take the placement test for city colleges. So they've been great partners also in doing some of that barrier reduction work.
Okay, so repeat that again. They wrote some of the legislation around that. Is that what you're saying?
Things that I'm not allowed to do.
All right, we do have time for another question or two. Is there anyone who wants to come off mute? Great. I have one last question for you, Megan, and then we'll see if any others come in. But you mentioned, well, you've actually talked about a lot of the stepping stones that we, for those of you who've been with NPSI for the last 5 years, have heard, CPS folks present Learn, Plan, Succeed, and On Track and the roadmap. But you mentioned when you were presenting that your new goal for semester's worth of credit or an equivalent isn't dismissing the rest, right? It's like we still got to do everything else, and now we have to do this. Can you talk a little bit about kind of like how you communicate that and mindsets, and to kind of like continuing the work? You still have opportunity gaps where the some of the low bar needs to be filled in. How do you keep pushing, and how do you communicate that to your district folks?
Yeah, I think it's a great mix of the discussion around high expectations and high supports. And I'd like to go back to the work of Teresa Perry and think about like how do we make sure we're not lowering expectations? And so when we talk about, like, we already have this framework, of course we want 100% of students to graduate with a post-secondary plan. Of course we want to increase our graduation rate. We want, like, because we have those metrics, we can kind of set this in as the baseline. And we are never going to say it's okay for some students not to meet that. Like, that's not in our language. When we made the data available that wasn't visible before, when I tell you, you could only see, we have so much data, but you couldn't actually see what percent of students in a school were enrolled in advanced courses. So we'd have schools say, oh, we're an IB World School. We've got, this many students who earn, this percent of students earn their diploma. It's a school of 1,300 or 3,000. You've got 30 students in the diploma track. That that discussion of what are you doing for all students, let's look at that. Let's look at not just students by different student groups, but also students who have IEPs, students with disabilities, students who are English learners. We also made visible which students come in through your neighborhood enrollment track versus your application track. And those were some hard discussions, but we didn't call schools out. We made that available for schools to look at internally. So we weren't comparing them against other schools. We were saying each individual school, are you serving all students? Who doesn't have access? And that's our targeted universalism framework that we use, that really is look at your own practice, look at who you're serving, and then talk to those people who are not accessing, talk to the students. Why aren't you in those advanced courses? Is it you're being steered one way? Is it you don't have enough teachers? Is it you don't want to be in there because it's going to be more work and there's no other boys in that class and we have to do work around that? All the things that you all have heard, right? A million times. We had to do that work. We did that 2 years ago in getting ready to set this stage. So I would say that was a lot of the mindset work, but it was also safe practice. We didn't publish that on our accountability website. We didn't call schools out. And I think we kept messaging, we're continuing the other things. We're continuing Learn, Plan, Succeed. We're continuing the advising, while we then had that reflection. And that data was so interesting. And it really showed us where then we needed to resource schools differently too.
Kelly, do we have time for one more question? My question, Megan, is I heard you say the expectation was even if you want to do a career pathway, you still have to be prepared for college. So talk a little bit about how you message that, because so many people look at it as either or rather than both and. So we're always trying to push that you should be prepared for both.
Well, one of our favorite activities has become our union visits with counselors and with post-secondary champions. So we've done a few years, just had one yesterday, of bringing post-secondary champions to visit union training centers and learn more about the trades. We've done a few big skilled trades fairs, like thousands of students, hundreds of partners. We're shifting that to be a little bit more direct hiring this year. But what that has done is helped, we now have a solid core of graduates who have gone into apprenticeships from a lot of different types of schools. So some of our top test, like, I mean, Joyce, like Lynn Bloom and Peyton and Whitney Young, we now have students going into these very competitive union apprenticeship programs. And they're graduating right out of high school into those programs, which historically has been unheard of. And these are all students of color. So, a lot of this has been, kind of like a steady drumbeat of why would you want to do this? How do you need to get ready for it? And then our advising curriculum, including that, and then us including evidence for Learn, Plan, Succeed around what you need to show that you're ready for those trades. But we have the trades unions welcoming our students now in a way they've never done. And so once we got that door open, we really felt the urgency to get our students through those doors and into those seats. And we had 58 students who got hired into first year jobs with one of the city departments and city union departments. I mean, those young people, and they came from like 45 different schools of ours. They're set for life if they really want to stay in that pathway. And like that is really resonating. And I hate to say the pandemic helped in that, but it kind of helped because, it drove that home too.
Yeah, and so do the unions tell you, just like colleges tell you the admissions requirements? Do you have list of what it takes to get the apprenticeship from the
Yes.
union? Oh, that's perfect.
Yes, and we have some great workforce development partners. I think you all also know they're not all created equal, kind of like all college and universities are not created equal. I think we've been talking a lot about match and fit on the career side,
Mm,
and trying to translate all of the language we had around post-secondary pathways to language for the trades. So, you know, if you don't want to get a driver's license, you can't go into these pathways. If you we have the practice tests, and we even have unions doing bridge programs while they're still in high school and adding points to their apprenticeship applications.
that's wonderful. I think the key takeaway is that you have these partnerships with the industry people, so they're letting you know what the preparation needs to be.
And we're not as far as there. Some of the Texas districts are way farther ahead, and a lot of the industry partner work. I think we might be a little. We're such a union town that and those things have to move at the same time.
Mhm. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you, Megan. I am going to move us forward to our cross-district conversations, but really just want to thank you for your time. I know you also, it's hard to find an hour and a half of your time. So for you to give that to us and share your thinking, it was very, very much appreciated. And for those of you who asked, we did record the portion